Okay. This is a big story, a literally large story. It takes up a lot of space to tell it, but I think I figured out a way to do it. So the Iowa caucuses are less than a month away now, first contest in the Democratic presidential primary. You're not going to believe this on a lot of different levels, but I want to show you a very specific snapshot of how that's going. This is data from NBC News. It's NBC's up-to-date tally as of this week of what the candidates are spending on ads so far in the race, now that we're less than a month out from Iowa. It's TV and radio ads. Check this out. For scale, we're going to start with President Trump. His reelection campaign is trying to play ahead of the general election while the Democrats are competing. Trump's reelection campaign has spent close to $6 million so far on ads on TV and radio. By contrast, the national frontrunner in the Democratic race, former Vice President Joe Biden, has not spent even half of that. He has spent under $3 million on ads so far. That spending from Biden is roughly in line-ish with a few other Democrats in the field. Senator Elizabeth Warren spending a little more than Biden. Senator Amy Klobuchar spending a little bit less. But even those three are pretty close together. Warren, Biden, and Klobuchar. They're also pretty comfortably ahead of Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard and Senator Michael Bennet, who have each spent about $1 million each on TV and radio ads so far. We're mapping here candidates who spent $1 million or more on their ads thus far. Now, in terms of the rest of the field, that's when you start to need a little more room, physical room, to tell the story. Entrepreneur Andrew Yang has spent more than Trump, more than double Biden, $6.6 million on ads so far. It's actually more than Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren combined. If you zoom out even more, you get to Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Senator Bernie Sanders, who are practically off the charts, spending $10 million apiece. Those numbers are huge, right, on the outer edges of the atmosphere of presidential ad spending. But this is not everyone spending money on presidential primary ads. This is not the full picture. For the full picture, you actually have to change the scale to fit everybody else on the board. Ready? Whoop! Bye, you guys. The reason we have to make those bars so small is because in order to get an accurate to scale picture of what Tom Steyer has spent, you have to shrink everybody else down that much. Tom Steyer has spent an unfathomable $67 million on TV ads to boost his chances in the Democratic primary this far. All the other candidates have spent like pennies by comparison. I mean, right? Interesting divisions between them until you see how much more Steyer has spent. Everybody else is like little bar graph slivers compared to him. And that seems sort of unbelievable, right? The scale. It almost seems kind of impossible to get your head around quantitatively. It might seem like the most money any single human being has ever spent on TV ads at this point in a presidential race, and it is. Until you factor in this. Ta-da! Tom Steyer would have the record, but for former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, the other Democratic billionaire running for president who has, to this point, spent $142 million on TV and radio ads already. More than every single person running for president has spent on TV ads and radio ads combined. And that is including the other billionaire. I mean, Tom Steyer has outspent every other candidate combined except for Bloomberg, and Bloomberg has more than doubled what Steyer has spent. And so, sure, it is interesting to look at the action sort of down there at what, some of the frontrunners are spending on this race and how it relates to the Trump campaign and all that. It's interesting that the incumbent president is already spending more than double what the national frontrunner is spending on ads. But those two peaks at the top of the mountain, I mean, that's just astounding, right? Mayor Bloomberg will never qualify for a debate in the Democratic primary. He's not taking donations for his campaign from anybody not named Michael Bloomberg. The DNC has said this year that one of the things you have to do to qualify the debates is show that you can raise money from a certain number of people. He won't raise money from anybody other than himself. And so he's not going to be in any of the Democratic debates. Tom Steyer is raising money from other people. He's made it into some of the earlier debates. Just tonight, Steyer appears to have qualified for next week's Democratic debate on the strength of new polling from a couple of early states. He did quite well, actually, polling third in Nevada and second in South Carolina. New Fox News polls out tonight. Tomorrow's the deadline to make it into that debate. Unless we get a sudden avalanche of brand new polls tomorrow, it seems pretty likely that this is going to be the Democratic lineup at the debate next week. But that just brings us back to this bizarro world element to the Democratic race right now. I mean, at least in terms of the metrics, right? Only one of the two candidates blowing everybody out of the water in terms of their spending is even going to be debating. Right? The other huge spender, Bloomberg, is not even trying to debate, and he's not even going to try to compete in the first four early states. He's not even trying to get on the ballot in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina or Nevada. And maybe the billionaires are each working a genius strategy, and they're both going to be top contenders to get the nomination, maybe, right? I mean, weirder things have happened. I know Tom Steyer and Michael Bloomberg are spending these astonishing amounts of money because they each think that they should be the nominee, and they're spending money hand over fist to make it so. But if during this process it becomes clear that neither of them is going to win the nomination, here's the question. Will they leave their money in the race? I mean, if neither of those billionaires is going to personally be the nominee, will they still keep their money in the race to try to beat Trump and elect a Democratic nominee if it's a nominee other than themselves? Because if you want to extrapolate from this astonishing snapshot at this point in the race, if they keep their money in, if they keep their money here, I mean, that's shaping up to be hundreds of millions of dollars, certainly. In Bloomberg's case, it shapes up potentially to be billions of dollars in anti-Trump, pro-Democratic ad spending alone. That's if either of them becomes the nominee, but conceivably, it's if their money stays in, regardless of whether or not they do as candidates. What would that chart look like for the general election? We're going to need to move into a bigger studio.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.